Greetings. It's Monday, April the 6th, in the rather infamous year of 2026. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is the Monday Morning Report. Well, there are two big stories I want to cover today. One, of course, is the war in Iran, which, well, we're not really sure what's going on, but very few people want to be that honest with themselves or with you. And the other, of course, is something a lot more positive, which is the Artemis II spacecraft, which at the time of this recording is a few hours away from passing on the other side of the moon. First time that's happened since I was a child, and most of you out there were probably not even born. First off, what's going on in Iran? As you know, earlier in this week, there was a shoot down of a couple of F-15s, several crew members. 3, I believe, was the number. They bailed out over Iranian territory and were rescued eventually. What's come out is that the Americans already have bases of operations in Iran, and a lot of Iranian civilians helped these guys. One report I heard this morning is that one of the villages where they hid for a while, one of the pilots hid for a while, they rounded up about 20 people, and my guess is they're not going to have a very good time of it. No, the Americans and Israelis, in spite of what you're hearing in the mainstream media, all the reliable reports coming out of Iran and from people who are in touch with people on the ground there, is that the U.S. and Israel are pulverizing that place far more than any of the talking heads would like to admit or even can figure out. Now, at the same time, President Trump is talking about a ceasefire, ending the war. He's playing a lot of games, and this is done intentionally to keep the other side off balance. In reality, there's no way the Israelis, and I think the Americans at this point, will tolerate the Islamic Republic continuing. It'll have to be replaced with something else. However, I think I might understand what is being played here at a certain higher level. Right now, the Straits of Hormuz are closed officially. In reality, Iran does not have much capability of closing them. They just declare them closed, and the insurance companies in London and elsewhere basically say if you have a supertanker and you try to drive it through there, anything happens, you won't get any money for it. Okay, insurance companies run the world far more than you might think, and they especially run the shipping business. Now, how much American oil or American-bound oil goes through the Straits of Hormuz? Almost nothing. We get ours from Saudi Arabia and other port facilities that are not in the line of fire. But at the same time, the United States has a massive supply of oil. It's not generally known, but over the decades, the Americans have capped a lot of their wells in the mainland United States and up in Alaska, and decided to import oil and keep our own in reserve. You don't hear much about that. Now, there was still fracking and a bunch of other things going on, and the U.S. does produce oil, but a vast amount of it has been kept in reserve. And this has been policy for a few decades, is my understanding. Right now, the big concern is all the oil that's not going through the Straits of Hormuz that's supposed to be bound for China, Japan, places in the Far East, and Europe especially. Okay, now let's think about this for a second. Remember last year people were predicting doom and gloom because everyone wanted to stop using the dollar to buy oil or for international trade because the Americans, quote-unquote, bully people into compliance with their will. Usually tin-pot dictators, but that's another debate right there. Okay, in the past year, since everyone was scared that the petrodollar was going to disappear and the U.S. was going to be hit by hyperinflation and the end of the world was nigh, well, the U.S. has taken over Venezuela in all but official term, literally the largest reserve of oil on Earth. Oil is not coming out of the Middle East, and Donald Trump has said, we have plenty of oil. Why don't you buy it from us? I guarantee you that if the United States is selling oil, they're not going to be accepting Russian rubles or Chinese yuan. If this is what is being played, if it's being decided to, one, overthrow the government of Iran, replace it with something very friendly to the United States and Israel, two, permanently put a squeeze on people to start buying American oil, and three, be able to overthrow other governments that need to be overthrown, Cuba being at the top of the heap. You see, what could be going on here, folks, is instead of a new world order, Donald Trump is trying to put together the Trump world order, one in which the United States will regain its central authority over international finance pertaining to oil. Now, as I said last week, what's wrong with a war about oil? Because oil is everywhere. Everything in our civilization is either made of oil or created by the use of oil. You can't get away from that. Electric cars, being what they are still mostly made up of plastic, and all the paint and all the accessories and everything are made from petroleum. So please, 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 the world is not a big pile of fluff with a bunch of cherries on it. If there's any reason people go to war, it's resources, and oil is the resource of planet Earth. No, I think there's a play being done here. Can't prove it. This is just a theory that fits a lot of the facts right now. But the U.S. is pulverizing Iran. Israel has been taking out just about everybody in their leadership. There doesn't seem to be anyone in charge. They're launching a few missiles a day. They still have a lot of drones, but everything seems to be unorganized. And the Iranian people are on the side of the Americans and the Israelis. That's just a fact. No, what's going to happen is a total reset of the entire world economic order. And the U.S. is going to be back on top if, and I repeat, if this works, if this is what's actually being done. It's hard to tell because people are just guessing and making predictions, and I can't make predictions if I don't have all the facts, and nobody has all the facts. So what I think is going on is basically a complete turnaround of the world depending on Middle Eastern oil and starting to look towards American and South American oil as a more stable supply. And then Iran will also be taken over by a new government. Now, the talk about peace talks with Iran, I don't even know how that is going to happen. It's supposed to have an intermediary in Pakistan. There's no way they're going to allow the Islamic Republic to survive. If it does, this whole thing is for nothing. But just watch and wait. The next few days is going to be critical. Tomorrow is supposed to be, according to President Trump, Bridge and Power Plant Day, where if a deal is not cut, major chunks of Iranian infrastructure will be destroyed. Okay. So much better for Halliburton and other people that build countries after wars have happened. No, there's a lot of money to be made in war, and there's even more to be made in rebuilding. The Iranians have a lot of oil no matter how this goes, so just remember that nothing is certain in war. And anybody out there who is telling you exactly how it's going to go is just making it up. So stay tuned, as we say in radio. Now, on the other side of the equation, a few hours from now, the Artemis II spacecraft is going to go into free return trajectory around the moon. Let me explain that. That only happened once during the Apollo program. And that was with Apollo 13 because Apollo 13 was very broken and they didn't have a large engine to use to get back home. They had to use the moon to slingshot themselves around. The real objective is to land on the moon eventually. You have to go into orbit. Apollo 8 went into orbit. Apollo 10, 11, 12, all the others went into orbit. And this is not going into orbit. Basically, they're just sitting out there testing things, which is fine because they're not rushing to the moon like we were in the 1960s. Back then, we were moving at breakneck speed, so much so that it's shocking that no one else was killed besides the crew of Apollo 1 that were that were sadly taken from us when there was a test that went wrong. But this is not that big a deal in terms of technology. Now, they are going further than any other human has ever gone before, which is interesting. But this is not real hardcore space travel, not yet. Until they can actually go into orbit around the moon and then relight their engine, which is the real iffy part no matter what, and then return to Earth, then we're really back to where Apollo was in 1968. But it's still a lot of fun to see us doing something for a change in space. By all accounts, that the 4 astronauts, in spite of a lot of talk, are all very well qualified people. I checked into their backgrounds, and they're pretty much the best we have. But this is a shakedown cruise. This is to test the equipment. You heard the reports of the toilet not working, and there's other things that they've had to deal with. It's a shakedown cruise. It's designed to see what that spaceship can do. Now, I don't believe we are ever going to build a long-term base on the moon because I don't really think it's possible given the way the dust is there. We'll see. Technology might become more advanced because the dust on the moon is pulverized glass that's been hit by meteorites for billions of years. The astronauts didn't like it, and they didn't like breathing it because it's like little tiny razor blades going into their lungs. And that's going to have to be something that they contend with. But right now, let's just enjoy the distraction from all the craziness going on in our world. The amount of money being spent on this war with Iran, to go back to that, is going to make the cost of the Artemis missions very, very small. It's going to be a lot, hundreds of billions of dollars, and maybe even more than is generally going to be discussed. War is expensive, and modern weapons are very expensive. So this is why I've been saying it's an all-or-nothing show in that part of the world. If Trump and his people pull this off, it's going to be a pretty good situation. If they don't, it's going to be a disaster upon a disaster. This is putting all the chips on the table. And unlike the people up in space that are kind of going on something as certain as the gravity of the moon, what goes on in the Middle East right now is a crapshoot. It is more uncertainty than I think we can afford these days, but let's see where it goes. The Iranian people deserve to be treated like human beings for a change. And the elimination of the Islamic Republic of Iran will mean the end of the era of Islamic state-run terrorism on a massive scale. And I think after 47 years of such insanity, everyone in the world, especially the people in the Middle East, need to have a break and need to go back to just living their lives and caring about their children's future. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies, and don't forget they are enemies. And at the same time, please consider a paid subscription. It keeps the lights on literally and figuratively and keeps me out meeting some interesting people that you'll be hearing about soon. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. I am up on other social media platforms, but not Facebook. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember Clown World, the Deep State, and all Islamic fundamentalist insanity must be destroyed. Good day.